Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I am back again. So we have said in the previous thing, so let's just close this preview. I guess we are done with this whole application, so let's just close the designer for now. Okay, so we have said that our to-do list is gonna be created in the database. So we're gonna discuss what an SQL file is, what tables are, keys. We have actually discussed what tables are, and I have said that, or I have recommended for you to look them up, so you actually need to have an idea at least of what a table is, what it has, and how it works, and how we are going to use it, and everything about it. So you don't need me to explain anything actually. So good, I'm joking. Astaghfirullah al-Azim. So we need to implement some keys in order for us to understand them more and more. We actually have to implement these keys even though we don't have to understand them, because they are essential to building our tables. So we have to use those. The engine thing is a thing that I don't understand myself very well. So there are some engines that you can use to create your tables. Basically, those engines defines how your table or your database is gonna work. Okay, so with different engines, your DB works in different kind of ways. So how can we connect to our SQL server from the terminal? That's easy. Source command execute a SQL file. Okay. So let's discuss what an SQL file is. An SQL file is all it is. An SQL file, for example, is just the structure of our DB in a file, which ends with the extension of .sql. For example, let's say we have my database or YouTube tutorial database or db.sql, and I have this in my directory, so I just can execute it. Yeah, something like that. Next, tables. Let's move on. You already know what tables are, right? So okay, tables are just tables. Okay, so MySQL stores data in tables. What data specifically? So let's say we have students again, and attendance, or student attendance. Let's make this more clear. Students attendance. So we have two tables. The students table saves some data, and the students attendance table saves some data as well. Or the right expression could be, or the more clear expression should be, students or our table saves the data, and we are using table as a way to store that data. For example, it's just us representing the data with this database, which represents data in itself using tables. So we can represent our data or save our data in any way we want, but we are choosing MySQL because it helps us represent our data in tables. So we have the students table, which says the first name, last name, birth date, for example, for us, and each row of that students table has a primary key that gets auto incremented and auto generated. So let's remove these two tables, these two names, weird names, and let's move on. The keys, primary key and foreign key. Foreign keys and primary keys are the same thing. A primary key is what identifies a row in a table. If it's a number, a varchar, anything you choose. You can actually choose varchar if you want, but let's just go with our example. A primary key is what identifies a row which we have chosen to be the enrollment number, or basically from 1 to, I guess, ln squared 11 or what. I don't do that much math. So yeah, primary keys are just things that are auto-generated, auto-incremented. Thanks to MySQL, we don't have to think about that. And foreign keys are just primary keys of other tables. So the student's attendance table stores a foreign key or has a foreign key of the student's ID, for example, or the student's table. So the student's table has a student ID as a primary key, and the student's attendance table has a student ID as a foreign key. So that foreign key is just the primary key of the student's table. So hence student's attendance table. So the engine. So this is your homework, okay? This is your homework and mine. Let me just have a unique specific video for this one. Okay, I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't understand this enough. Okay, but I know how to use it. So each time you create a table, I guess you can use an engine with it, but it's not necessary actually to create a table. Yeah, so okay, let's try to create a table and without using this engine. So I shouldn't actually have brought this whole topic of the engine because okay. So now we connect to our server from the terminal. So first of all, let's create an SQL file. Okay, let's come back. So let's just get status, get add all, get commit. You know these commit things I don't know nothing about. So we are main.ui and teaching update, I guess. I'm gonna have that as well. So git push. Yeah, no internet connection. What? Oh, I'm connected to the internet, so I can actually Google the engines thing. Okay, so let's just leave it to the next video like I've said. So I'm recording for 7 minutes. Now, so SQL file. So let's have, for example, let's touch a file of YouTube, or let's just do tutorial db.sql. This tutorial.db, for example, is gonna be, so let's create I forget what a comment looks like in this thing. Astaghfirullah. Okay, let's just do, so we need to create a table. Okay, so create some table. Oh, we need to create a database first. So let's create database. Let's have a unique name for this database. Create database. We need to have a log name for this because I have a lot of databases and I don't want to get like overwrite some of these things that I have. So let's create a name. Create database. Let's have a name. So let's have some Karim Benzema. Yeah, this is not a name I've used. So I downloaded the PS17 actually just days earlier, so I know a lot of players' names right now. So it's been a long time with that thing. So create database, yeah. It's actually a bad thing to do, just considering you want to teach people and you want to have a lot of time in order for you to do that. So you can, okay, what am I doing? This is not table. Astaghfirullah العظيم. So create database, the database name in these weird quotes. You're gonna find those in your keyboard. Just look for them. If you look long enough, you're gonna succeed, my friend. Just look for them. Okay, so create database. So first of all, in order for us to create a database, we need to drop the database if already exists in our system. So just think of one case scenario, us creating the database. Next time we want to override the database, we need to drop it. Okay, so let's just drop it from the first day, from the first thing off. So let's just do drop Karim Benzema. Let's just call it DP on the end, so this guy doesn't get offended. He's actually a Muslim, so you have to respect him. You have to respect everyone, actually. Yeah, I almost got myself screwed there. Astaghfirullah al-Azim. Drop database Karim Benzema DB. Exactly. Create database Karim Benzema DB. Exactly. Some respect, my friend. So drop database, create database. We now can create tables. So we can create table. Okay, we can actually have something in here. So we need a comma, semicolon there. Create drop database if exists. I don't know this if exists is before or after the names database. This has been a long time since I wrote a query. Yeah, so let's just have that before. Actually, yeah, let me just open this. So let's have root p. Add the password, clear, not clear. Okay, so we can have, for example, like drop db, drop database if exists. So this is the interpreter of the database, so or the command line on the database. So we actually can give it commands to execute. I just want to give it this query so I can see if it actually works. So I'm gonna use it in my file. So if exists, and I'm gonna give it the name of the database, which is Karim blah blah blah. Actually the name doesn't matter, I just want to know if the query works. You have an error in your SQL syntax, check the manual to respond to okay. If I do this, it doesn't exist, so it's in here. So if exists, what? Okay. Exists. Exactly. This is the right query. So it's before. So I can exit. Yeah, it's before the database's name. So we can drop the database, create database, and create a table. So we can have student. Okay, so you can choose actually another meaningful name of the database if you want. You can choose like Dojo system, something like that. Student. Okay. So this is a simple version of our database for now. So create table student. We can have student ID, which is an integer of 11. So I'm not gonna write integer like this. Okay. Yeah, I'm back. So student ID is an integer of 11 characters. It can be up to 11. What this integer 11 means is that you are given your, for example, your column or your value here. So you are given the ability to yeah, you are giving the ability to your to your primary key, because this is a primary key, so we can actually move from it can be from 1 up to 9 and 11 nines basically, so up to 11 nines. Okay, I guess actually I find a way to comment this stuff. Yeah, exactly. Now what? Come on, man. Man, this keyboard. Haydi. I'm just about it. I don't want to send it. This is just amazing. Okay. Leave full screen. Okay. Alhamdulillah. Now we can create comments like I've said. So let's move down here and say this is just a way to create or to write have a comment in MySQL file .sql. Comments are being ignored by the engine or by MySQL. Do not bring the engine thing back again. So like I've said, this is an integer 11. Let's have auto increment. I feel like I've forgotten something in here. Let's just look into another database. So let's go to projects. Okay. By the way, we can copy the engine thing. Yeah, I really don't want to write this down for you. So let's just copy it. We're gonna use it later. Anyway, let's come down here. Let's have it as a comment. Let's have it as a comment, okay? Let's come back. So now we have the table integer not null auto increment. Okay, so I was right, that's actually all we needed. So let's just check some things here so I don't forget. Okay, default. Okay. So we have this engine thing. You can just copy it. All you need to do is just write this down in here. Okay, just copy it and use it for now. You can Google for it. You can go and understand what engines are all about, but I'm not gonna explain it in this video. In the next video, inshallah, I'm gonna tell you what you have to know about it, so we can move on with it. Basically, all you need to know is just copy this line and copy it and paste it anywhere you need, or after each table you create. So that's all I know about the engine actually, and I know that this is the best line to use of the engines, so that's another thing that I know. So student ID, actually for our case, by the way, because if there isn't other cases, there wouldn't be other lines of the engine, the code, not those lines you think about. So student ID, this is an integer auto increment. This should not be null, so it doesn't take a value of null, and that not null is exactly that. So the ID or the primary key should not take a value of null. While we are at it, we can have the primary key as the student ID. Actually, this is not a semicolon, this is just a comma. Okay, student ID, we have first name, which is a var character of, we can have up to 50 characters in a name, and this is, by the way, not null as well. So last name is also a var character which takes up to 50 characters, which I haven't done right. 50 characters, and by the way, it should not be null as well. What's the last thing that we need? Yeah, birth date, and this is just a date and not null. Yeah, this comma here is after each line, but this last line doesn't have a comma. When does it have it? If we are gonna have a foreign key, but we don't, so we don't have it. Just make sure each line, at the end of each line, if it's not the last line, it has a comma, and always the last line should be either a foreign key or a primary key which doesn't have a comma. So the engine has a semi-comma in the end, semicolon or whatever they call it in English. So student ID, first name, last name, birth date. Yeah, that's all we need. 4 columns in one row. So this, by the way, represents one row, okay, in our database or in our table. So each row has these things. It's just amazing how we can represent humans in databases. Subhanallah. So databases, if exists, Karim Benzema DB, create database, create table, students. Yeah, I guess this is all we need for our case. So teaching, update. So we have discussed the .sql file, tables, keys. So in our case, this is the primary key, hence the name. You can actually make this uppercase. That's some advice for best practices for beginners, but because I never used it as a beginner or as an experienced programmer, I don't use it anyway. So you can, it actually accepts both ways, uppercase or lowercase. So lowercase is less typing. So yeah, we have discussed the SQL file, the keys, the engine. We have told you all I know about it. So the next video is gonna be about engines in MySQL. I'm gonna discuss engines in general, and then in MySQL in general, and then in MySQL. So less confusion. Next thing, we have connected to the our server from the terminal. Not yet. The source command to execute a SQL file or its path. You need to understand that each time you change the .sql, so okay. So let's just make a connection to our server and then to our DB, and then we need to execute things. So let's say, so how do you actually know tutorial db.sql? In order for you to actually know that your .sql file works and the database in here or the structure in here is a working structure, you need to execute it to find out. So for example, in order for us to connect to our server, which actually we did earlier, we just need to do mysql-u, the username, which is root for my case, and -password, -p for password, which is just this for my case. It's just TOOR, so root in reverse. That's not a good practice, by the way. So MariaDB, so this is the command line that takes queries in. So we can just show databases, for example, if we want. For the sake of privacy, I'm not gonna do that, but you can execute any query you want. So we can do something like, yeah, what can we do? Astaghfirullah al-Azim. Yeah, tutorial DB. What do we want to do? I forgot. Okay, we want to connect. We have connected. We want to execute the source so we can know it's working. So we can have this as the source from show, I guess. That's from whom? Show. Yeah, this is in our planning. Okay, we need to get the path of this thing. Current working directory. Yeah, that's some name in there. So you need the source dot home and the slash. What's the name of this database? It's actually teaching update. Oh, tutorial DB. .sql. Hit OK. Okay, so query OK, 0 affected, 1 warning. OK, affected, 1 warning. No database selected. Okay, we need to select our database first. So exit. Each time you do an SQL change, I guess you need to exit and then reconnect to your server. I don't know why is that happening, but it's some good. It's some bad thing that it needs to change. That's only my opinion because I don't understand much about MySQL. So, okay, so we actually need to use or to select it. So we are gonna select the database. So let's just discuss something here. So you can select the DB, or you have to select the DB that you want to work with. That's a note for you. So you can use it using the use keyword. So let's just use this use like this. So use Karim Benzema. Database. Okay. Let's see if it works now. Let's come back. Let's do connect, password, clear. You can do Control L to clear your prompt. And let's do this too. Okay. Alhamdulillah. So database changed. Excuse me? Okay, database changed one query. Okay, so it's been affected. Okay, so our database, we know that our structure works, but to make sure it does work more, or let's just insert some data. So insert into student. We are gonna insert a first name. So for example, you can just insert into student and do values, but here you have to give it student ID manually. So you are gonna just do parentheses to select what you are gonna give it. So student first name, last name, Allah sahbi Allah, the last name, birth date, and what. Okay, so that's it. So we're gonna give it the values, which are, let's give it Ahmed Isho, and let's give it the birth date of 2001. Okay, and let's do something like select. So in order for us to select something from the database, we just do, or from a table on the database, we just do select all from student, which is the name of the table that we are gonna use. If the table's name was students, we're just gonna do students, but it's not, so we're gonna do all from students, or select whatever field you want from students. So you can do select first name. Just gonna do this for practice sake. So first name, last name, and birth date. Or let's just have this in reverse. So I actually have to show you that you don't have to have this actually in order. Birth date and last name from student. They do not have to be in order. You can have those in order if you want, but yeah. So let's connect, or let's reconnect again. Yeah, so each query has been effectively. Okay, so one row affected: student ID, first name, last name, first name, birth date, and last name. So let's review our to-do and see if we have got everything right as we have expected. So let's go to the clear and let's do the teaching update thing. Let's go down here and let's see. So we have connected to our server. We know what an SQL file is. We have executed it. We made a database. We connected to it. We used it. That's how we connected to it. We executed a query. We actually executed multiple queries. We executed one, for example, to connect to our database, like we have done. This is a command to connect to the server, and this is a query that we have executed in our MySQL interpreter, or command line, or command interface, or something like that, anything you want to call it. And by the way, the SQL, the things that we have in SQL, for example, folder, we can actually execute those from here as well. So you don't actually have to put them in your file if you want, but just for saving time's sake, we did it in that. And in order for you to save the data actually, so in order for you to save the DB structure, we have made it into an SQL file. But if you just want to execute something, so let's say we select all from students, it's gonna call what's this gonna print? It's gonna print a student? No, it's not, because we haven't selected a student, or we haven't selected a database. Yeah, excuse me, we haven't selected database. That's why it's giving us an error. So we can use the database that we have created before, which is what? Karim, I guess. Karim Benzema DB. Reading table. Okay, database change. Show tables. So we have one table, which is student. So show all from student. Oh no, show all is select all from student. So student ID, first name, last name, birth date. So if we want to select, for example, only student IDs from student, this only gives you the student IDs that are in the database. In this case, it returns only one because all we have in our database is one student. So we can exit from this tab in our terminal, and we can only work with this. So we can do get status, get add, or get add, get commit, last changes, get push. And this is all we have, alhamdulillah, for this video. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.